The reason why we procrastinate is because we're left to our own devices. If I don't feel like doing it, I don't have to do it. I can procrastinate, I can overthink, I can get distracted. When I really want to work on something, I find an accountability partner. I've had to do it with my health for a long, long time. I don't enjoy working out, you've heard me say that before, but I want to be fit, I want to be healthy, and I want to be alert, and I know that exercise is a big part of making that possible. I found an accountability partner in my tennis coach. She always shows up on time, and she'll make sure I get there if I get one of those excuses like, oh, I'm feeling tired today, or I'm a bit sore today. She'll make sure that I'm there playing tennis no matter what. Knowing that someone else is already out there when it's cold, when it's raining, when it's hot, when they're tired, allows you to push yourself out of your comfort zone. When you really need to work on something and improve something, you often have to do it when you don't feel like doing it. When you don't feel like doing something, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because that's when you have to connect with the feeling after. We get so obsessed about how we feel before something, when the feeling after is that much more important. Before you eat healthy food, you might not be attracted to it. After you eat healthy food, you feel good about yourself. But if you see that burger, or you see those fries, or you see that chocolate fudge cake, it feels good before, but then afterwards, you usually regret it.
Need motivation?
Watch a Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men all my life. Like na 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 na. For my top 10, top 10, na na na. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jay Shetty, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, flip the negative talk.
Words that we should use more of in our life are words that give us the right feeling we want to feel. So I'll give you an example. Instead of saying, now I work super hard, I do get tired, and I do get exhausted sometimes. I'm very aware of it and I'm cautious of it. And I realized that for a long time, I just kept repeating, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And I'd say it to my wife, I'd say it to my team.
I'm overwhelmed. Stressed.
Yeah, and I still do it sometimes. So it's not that I'm perfect, but you're making me aware of it. And I say that, and I started to realize that, okay, it didn't make me feel better by saying it. And actually what I was trying to do was get validation from someone else to be like, I know how hard you work and you're amazing and blah, 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 blah. And so, you're really doing it for a reaction.
Yes.
And then I started to realize, well, I am tired, but why don't I just say, I'm gonna make some time to nap today. Mm-hmm. I need to find some time today to rest. I need to make sure that I, get some time to myself today. Like when you flip it, not by just saying, oh, I feel amazing, because I don't feel amazing. Again, you don't want to lie to yourself, but you're trying to create words that help you actually get what you need. So me saying I'm tired, really what I need to be saying is, I need to get some more rest today. I better sleep early. Yeah. And when you go, to Radhi, you know what? I think I'm going to sleep early tonight. That's perfect, because now I'll sleep early and I'll get the rest and I won't be tired. Yes. If I go, hey Radhi, I'm so tired, it just creates this negative pattern of complaining and whining.
Rule number 3, create healthier thoughts.
We know that we have around 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. The most incredible thing is these thoughts are cycling. They're not only repetitive, but they're also negative. I realized that knowing which are the most repetitive and negative thoughts allows you to spot their trigger. Do you experience this when you're on social media? Do you experience this when you're watching a particular show or you're around certain people? What we want to do is find that trigger, trace that trigger back to its root, and reduce that activity in our life. Often what we think is causing us anxiety is different from the root of where it started. It was Wayne Dyer who said, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Let's look at our thoughts differently. Stop thinking that you are your thoughts and that your thoughts are all you are. Recognizing that we're so much more beyond our thoughts allows us to disconnect and distance from them and then upgrade them towards healthier thoughts.
Rule number 4, choose a priority.
How many of you have tried to change everything all at the same time? You say to yourself, I want to work on my health, I'm going to improve my career, I'm going to get promoted this year, and we're going to go on date night every night. You start getting fixated on improving every area of your life. It comes from this desire to be better and do more. But the truth is, you have to choose that one big priority. It has to be not only at the top of the list, in the beginning, it has to be the list. There is only one thing you can improve at a time, and you need to choose wisely. It's so easy to get caught up and think, I want to improve my career. I also want to learn more. I also want to work on my relationship. I also want to work on my health. We have to stop that and say, this is my big priority for the next 30 days. Make your first step a small step. You may want to be up here, but you need to start down here. You need to take the first step. The reason why most people never get started is that their goal is so big that they think they have to achieve that on day one. They think that if they don't get there, they can't start here. And this is the most debilitating, frustrating feeling. And that's why we have to simplify and create that first small step. Reading is one of my favorite things to do. But sometimes my stack of books that I want to read is bigger than the amount of time I have. And at the same time, I'm trying to figure out which one am I going to get the most value from. And often I'll overthink and procrastinate.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Rule number 5, define words.
So many friends will come to me and say, my partner doesn't spend enough time.
Or I don't have enough time.
And what they're really saying is, from a partner point of view, is I really want energy, intimacy, and presence and attention.
It's attention.
You're not asking for time, you're asking for attention. And I've had friends who have gone on weekends away with their partners, and they'll come back and their partner on Monday morning will say, I wish we had more time together. And the partner's thinking, well, but we just spent the whole weekend together. But they're like, no, because you were doing your work and by the beach and you were reading your book and I was trying to take care of the kids. And you realize it was never time. It was attention, it was intimacy, it was presence. And so if we don't define those words, all right, words are all about definitions. If you don't define them, people will break that contract and that emotional contract, and you have nothing to hold them to.
Rule number 6, reward yourself.
You want to make sure that in any habit change, there is some reward. And a reward is making sure you recognize what amazing growth you're making. That you're taking a moment to see, look how far I've come. Because our mind, again, tricks us and always goes, look how far you have to go. It's really important that you remind yourself of how far you've come, how much you've grown, the difference you've made.
Rule number 7, focus on impact.
With this principle, it was actually a study by Amy Wrzniewski and her team at the Yale School of Management. They wanted to go and research what they believed was the most difficult job in the world: hospital cleaners. And this was pre-pandemic. These were people who had to clean up the hospital rooms, hospital beds, hospital toilets after people ate and even after people passed away. You can only imagine what a challenging and difficult job it is. They went and interviewed some hospital cleaners. Some of them described themselves as cleaners. They described the activities that I just stated and described themselves as doing that kind of labor. Now, another group of hospital cleaners, they described themselves as healers, servers, carers, transformers. They did the same exact work as the other cleaners in the same hospitals, but they saw themselves as directly connected towards the healing journey of the patient and the patient's family. They saw their work, that if they could make an environment clean, that would be better for the patient and the patient's family. They saw it as a way of serving someone's journey towards healing. This mindset, which Amy Wrzniewski and her team called job crafting, is where you look at your work differently. So many of us get caught up on that Excel spreadsheet. We get caught up on that PowerPoint presentation. We get caught up on doing the actual task, but we forget to look up. Look beyond our laptops, look beyond our screens, zoom out, and think about the impact that our work actually has on others. Your work may be allowing you to put food on the table and take care of your family. It may be helping your children go to a specific school. It may be helping them have certain opportunities. When you look up from the task and you focus on what your work truly allows you and the people you love to do, you start looking far beyond than just that activity. Think about that today, zoom out, and that reduces the anxiety. It reduces the stress that is attached to the day-to-day task and allows you to look at it from a bird's eye view.
Rule number 8, take small steps.
I think actions that we should be adding more of in our life are actions that create positive habits. I think it has to be habits orientated. It has to be stuff that we can repeat. And in Think Like a Monk, I talk about the 4 key habits in your day, which are thankfulness, inspiration, meditation, and exercise, which is the acronym of TIME. So make more time in your day for thankfulness, inspiration, meditation, and exercise. Those are 4 actions that I think if everyone wants to take in their day, this is what happens. When you're thankful, you boost your immunity, you boost your self-confidence, you boost your mood.
Yeah.
Because you go, oh, people love me. That means I matter. People care about me. That means I have something to care about. So it boosts your mood. And then when you tell people that you're thankful, you now boost connection and relationship. And when you thank someone, you now boost the feeling of, I have people in my life that care about me and I care about them. So much comes out of that one action. Inspiration or insight, listening to a podcast, reading a book, reading a quote. When you do that, again, you feel excited, you feel enthused, you feel like you're learning, you feel like your mind actually works and that it can go somewhere. So that's a great action. Meditation, of course, we've talked about at length in the beginning. And exercise. People just don't understand that we could solve so many of our challenges simply by sleep and exercise and diet. Like those 3 things
Change your life.
Could change your life. And we have to just get focused on one at a time. And so we're in actions. I talk about this thing in principle is we want things to be small steps, but big priorities. So if you want to change an action in your life, it needs to be a big priority, and then you need to break it down into small steps. What we try and do is we try and change everything at the same time.
Rule number 9, bring presence to task.
All of us don't have a lot of time. And so one of the reasons we procrastinate is because we say, well, I don't have enough time to figure that out, so I'm just going to put it off. I'll do it next week, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll think about it later, because we don't think we have the right amount of time. Here's what I've realized, and here's a hack that has helped me break through that idea. I've realized that when I'm present and focused, that's more powerful than any amount of time. When I'm alert, when I'm ready, even if I'm there for 15 or 20 minutes, I can actually make more progress than if I had an hour and I didn't bring my best energy. Ask yourself consistently, how can you bring your presence to the task, not your time? Don't let time be the limiting factor.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is allow time for distraction.
When I'm having a productive, effective day, that doesn't mean I don't get distracted. I get distracted plenty of times. I have tons of notifications, social media, big announcements, things that are happening throughout the day, plus a team across the world in different time zones to manage. So when I get distracted, I've created a really healthy relationship with distraction. I feel like sometimes our relationship with distraction is quite negative. We see it as a bad thing. We judge ourselves for feeling distracted. We start saying, oh, I wish I was more focused, or I wish I was more effective. So I literally got one of these distraction timers, as I call it, and I turn it over as soon as I get distracted. I let the sand run out, and as soon as it runs out, I have to get back to my task. This gives me the space and the time to allow for little distractions, and now I've figured out a way to allow myself 5 minutes of distraction time every hour. So every hour I allow myself to browse on my phone for 2 to 5 minutes, and that way I know that that time is going to happen, that time is going to come, and that allows me to delay it, to put it off, and to postpone my own distractions.
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy, but before that, it's time for the good deed of the day. This is something new. I believe that you're built to serve, and it feels so good to do something nice for somebody else. So good deed of the day, put down in the comments one thing that you need help with, that you're working on, that you'd love some support or guidance on, and then 2, go comment on somebody else's comment and give them some love, give them some support, give them some encouragement, maybe give them some connections, try to help them solve that problem, even if it's saying, I believe in you. That one little bit of encouragement can be the difference between somebody quitting and continuing on. So the good deed of the day, in the comments below, write down one thing that you need help on, that you're struggling with, that you're working on, and then part 2 is go give love to somebody else in the comments too, and let them know that you believe in them as well.
Whether you're looking at a beautiful view when you're on a walk, or whether you're looking at artwork in your home, looking at something that has natural elements can be so inspiring and so calming that you will feel relaxed from the anxiety. I find that surrounding myself with artwork or inspirational portraits drives me to thoughts of what those individuals went through, what the struggles that they went through are, what the challenges they went through, and that helps me deal with my anxiety. It helps me learn that I'm on the right path, I'm trying to make a difference, and that I can overcome what I'm going through just as they did. And one of the ways we were trained, and I'm not recommending this to anyone watching, I'm just sharing how much we are obsessed and addicted to the body. We were trained to not look in the mirror.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't look in a mirror for like 3 years.
Wow.
Right? Like effectively.
No way.
Effectively, yeah. As in, I looked in the mirror now and again when I had to shave my head or like whatever, like,
right.
But you don't look in a mirror to look at your appearance. I'm not saying that, I don't recommend that before you go to work tomorrow or anything like that, but just listen to the principle carefully.
You're going to get a,
yeah.
Jay, I can't even, what do I look like?
Yeah, what do I look like?
No,
so the reason is, and that's the reason why monks have shaved heads too, because you focus less on your physical appearance. You spend less time on your physical appearance. What that allows you to do is it literally dissolves your understanding of your physical presence, which means all you have to deal with is the inside. Just think about how much attention it takes to keep ourselves well groomed, to take care of ourselves, to our ego and attachment to how good we look. And I have it too, right? We all have it. Like, I'm not saying I'm detached from that. But what I'm saying is that we were trained in the belief that if you're able to switch off and close your eyes, why do we close our eyes when we meditate?
Right.
It's because it detaches us from the physical presence of where we are so that we can go inside. I feel like we give our toxic relationships and negativity so much energy. We're like for example, in your comment section on Instagram, for anyone who's on social media, for everyone who's on social media, you could pinpoint the one negative comment out of 100 positive comments. And we all do it. We amplify the negative, and you see it all the time. And we do the same in our lives, where we sit here talking about all the toxicity. And so for me, it's like, I can either spend all my energy trying to convince that one person to love me, or I can reply to the people that love me already, and they'll love me more because they already engaged with me, and they're going to feel so happy that I responded to them. And I think this is a great simple tip for everyone who's listening, is just when you respond to positivity in your life, it just increases. When you respond to the negativity in your life, it just increases. And so trying to get someone to like you and defend yourself and control how they feel about you, it wastes and drains so much energy. And you could use all that energy for the people that love you. Another one was when we were put out on the streets with nothing but had to fend for ourselves. And you recognize how you can actually live with very little, and how you need very little to get by. Whether it was fasting, like not being able to eat for several days or drink for several days, you recognize how grateful you are for what you do have. And so these mini experiments that are very extreme, that I'm not saying anyone has to do, and I'm not recommending anyone at home to do them. All I'm trying to say is that the body is like a vehicle. We have to take care of it. Just as you have a nice car, you got to take care of that nice car. But if you don't feed the driver, that car's not going anywhere. And so many of us have become more addicted to the vehicle than we have to the driver inside. And so the way of tapping into that driver inside is spend time with people who know their driver really well. And that's why monks were such a big part of my growth, because you meet people who have no agenda, want nothing from you, want nothing of the world, and are not trying to get somewhere. Like there's no win-win. It's only win for you. Like there's no win in it for them. And being around the energy of realized people who have that realization, who've been with their consciousness for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. That's a huge part of it. We're being built for a job, or we're being built to be in a box.
Right.
We're being built so that we fit into society. And I find it funny, right? It's like when you're a kid, you're told to fit in. Like what you probably remember this, stay in line, like fit in, everyone has to wear a uniform, everyone dresses the same, everyone has to do this. And then when you grow older, what are we all trying to do? We're all trying to stand out. It's weird. It's like your whole life you were told to fit in, and then as soon as you grow older, it's like, oh, you need a personal brand now, you need to stand out. Like, do you know your own voice? You need to stand out. Because we realize that we're all different.
How do you deal with it when the doubt is coming from the people that you really love and you know they care about you?
Yeah, it was hard. I didn't go to my I graduated, but never went to my graduation ceremony. So my mom doesn't have a picture of me holding my degree, and that was a big thing for her because I moved to India. I just went. So I never went to that, and that was a big thing for her. And actually, my parents, I'm very grateful. My mom and dad are actually fairly liberal and supportive of anything I've decided to do. It's my extended family that's had more opinions and been more involved in kind of stirring stuff up with my parents, if that makes sense. So the way I dealt with it was always asking myself these questions around, you know, is someone invested in my future? Is someone going to be there for me when I'm struggling? And is someone paying my bills? Like, those are my 3 checking system of who matters in life. Like your soul, your mind, and your paycheck. And I think the biggest thing I asked myself was just, am I going to look back on, if I don't do this, am I going to look back, going back to the Alexander the Great story, am I going to look back on my deathbed and say, my mom and dad held me back? Because I may say I'm going to do it for them. I'm not going to do this decision because I respect them and love them. But am I going to hate them in the end, or be bitter towards them, or feel a negative feeling towards them because I feel they held me back? And if that's the truth, I never want to feel that about my parents. They're incredible. So I need to go and take the responsibility to make this shift. And I think the truth is that when we think people are holding us back, it's just us not taking responsibility for us to push forward. Like, that's all it is. Because the truth is, if you really, 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 really want something, right? Like if someone told you right now, you had to get on a plane and there's $1 million in New York, no one would say, oh, my parents can't afford a plane. Like, no one would say that. You would do it. If you really wanted it, you'd get on a plane right now and you'd go pick that $1 million up. So it's our own insecurity that we reflect onto the people around us. And I think it's really important. I get it. There are people who are toxic around us. I get it. I had that too. There were people who were just like, literally people said to me, like, you realize you're going to fail at being a monk. You realize when you come back, no one's going to hire you. You realize when you come back, no one's going to want to be with you. You realize, you know, there were so many things. Like people like, you know, you're going to be socially dead. Like no one's going to care where you are. There was so much of that, but it didn't get amplified because I was strong in my conviction. So the way I dealt with it was just keep strengthening your conviction rather than trying to weaken the argument. Because the opinions of others will get weakened when you strengthen your own, right? That's how it works. You don't weaken someone else's to strengthen your own. Used to in our life having instant judgment, defining a moment and giving it a label, good or bad, in the moment. And I thought, how do I present a concept to the world where we can laugh at ourselves and realize that sometimes our instant judgment or our instant labeling processor isn't always correct?
Yes.
How do we get that? So this script or narrative that I shared in this video is on a gentleman who goes to buy these cookies because he feels like having a few cookies because his flight's delayed, and he sits down to eat these cookies, and the gentleman opposite him, where you're sitting right now, starts to take cookies out as well. And he's thinking, how's this guy? And the guy looks a little rugged, he looks a little scruffy, he doesn't look put together. So naturally all of our biases, our unconscious biases start coming up and stemming up. And we start thinking, oh, he looks a little shady. Or maybe he doesn't have money, that's why he's taking my cookies. And we have this impression of I, me, and mine. These are my cookies. How can he take them? Only to realize when he leaves that your cookie box was in your bag and that gentleman was sharing his cookies with you. And then this person has this epiphany or this moment of realizing how quick he was to judge, but how wrong he was. And I think all of us in different ways have different moments in our life where whether we misjudged a person the first time we met them, or we misjudged someone because of the first thing they said to us, or we had a friend that now is our best friend, but our first impression was, oh, they're a loser. And all of a sudden now we think they're amazing. Emotional intelligence to me is being able to be aware of yourself, self-awareness, being able to know yourself. That's the highest form of EQ.
Right.
Like being able to say, I know when I'm at my best, I know when I struggle, and I know when this is a limiting belief or not. And then being able to process all of that. So we're not helping people. I love saying this because it simplifies it, but we teach people what to think, not how to think.
Right.
We tell them 2 + 2 is 4, but we don't tell them how to think about a problem. And that's why when you're faced with a new problem and you don't have a formula for it and you don't have an equation for it,
right,
you're like, oh, I'm stuck, right? And life's like that. Like, when in life have you used a formula to solve a real situation in life, even business?
Yeah.
Like, when has a formula helped you?
Yeah.
But we're taught that formulas solve equations. Genuinely, since day one, and I remember reading them at the start, and so I'll add this. There have been times when I've looked at negative comments and been like, oh, that's quite funny. Like, you know, they're funny, they're true. But overall, I try to respond to everyone who said something positive, and I rarely put any energy into anyone who put anything negative, because I don't want to change their mind. They're entitled to their belief. They're okay to feel that way. And if I feel like it's good feedback, I'll take it on board. But if I feel like it's just someone being a keyboard warrior and, you know, doesn't like me and saying what they want, then I'm not going to take that seriously.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to tell the difference between the two.
100%.
If there's some authenticity and truth behind it, it's a much different comment than just unabashed hate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had everything from he has a wind machine in his videos to make sure his hair flies, right? Like, I've had that angle. And I'm
Wait,
like,
you don't have a wind machine?
I just went out on a really windy day.
This is an exclusive on the podcast.
This is an exclusive on the podcast. I do not have a wind machine. But I've had everything from that, and I laughed at that. I thought that was a hilarious comment. Through to the other side of just like, you know, I don't agree with you and I don't agree with the point you're making. This is my point. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I had 3 minutes to explain that and I missed that point. Like, you're right. You know, I agree with you. If I had a podcast like this, I could have explained myself. So, you know, but I do think that we do drag our own selves down. We put all the energy into the negativity and amplify it. Another story I'll tell you, because I love this too and it shows. So, and he'll like this story. So Marcus Aurelius, if you haven't read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, highly recommend it. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor, Meditations is his personal journal. And one of the stories that I love about him that comes up in a few Hollywood movies too, is that once when he was walking through the Roman town square, he used to have his advisor follow him around. And whenever people would glorify him and praise him, the person's job was to come into his ear and whisper, "You're just a man. You're just a man." Just to remind him in that moment where you just, you know, in that moment where you just feel like your ego is just going through the roof because everyone's saying, "You're amazing, you changed my life," etc. To remember you're just a man. And I would add to that, remember the people who made you that, right? Wow. Remember the people who gave you that. And so that's how I've learned to balance ego, is by any time I'm glorified or praised or appreciated or recognized, I'm passing that off to my teachers, guides, mentors, the universe, and accepting it on their behalf. So if I receive an award, I actually don't think it's mine. I'm accepting it on behalf of everyone who made me the way I am.
It's beautiful.
Whether it was positive or negative too. One of my favorite thoughts from Martin Luther King is, if you want a new idea, read an old book. And
what old books?
Many different ones. The Bhagavad Gita is probably one of my favorite books. It's been such a huge part of my personal journey and personal life. Many other religious texts as well. So the Bible's been a big part of my study. Spent a lot of time with the Bible. And then it can just be thoughts and ideas, even of the last 2,000 years. So Stoicism, a huge fan of Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. That's been a huge book for me that I've studied. And sometimes old can just mean 50 years or 100 years ago too. But those are some of the bigger ideas that I think have had more prominent effects in my life. So Vedic and Stoic knowledge has probably been the most influential. After a long time, the other day, my friends and I went bowling. And I started to think to myself that life is a lot like bowling. Bowling is a team sport just like life. In bowling, sometimes the best players struggle and others that were less likely to do well surprise you and make all the difference. This is one of my favorite lessons. Focusing on someone else's score doesn't make yours any better. It's easy to get distracted by how well someone else is playing. You see their score go up, they bowl a strike or a spare, and you're calculating in your mind what you think that could be. But all that does is it distracts you from your game. Similarly, in life, focusing on someone else's Instagram grid doesn't make yours any better. Focusing on what someone else is doing for work or what they're driving doesn't make yours any better. Focus on yourself, focus on your own role, your strengths. That will make all the difference.
I'm able to not judge myself because I don't judge others. A lot of people who are like, right? So tell me, I don't know, I'm
so
just
powerful. No, I love that. That's such a great point.
How do you think
That's
about
such
that
a great point. No, you're spot on, because the reason why we judge others is because we judge ourselves, right? The opposite of what you're saying. And so for me, it's the same thing. The reason why I don't expect is because I see everything as my responsibility.
Yep.
I see everything as my work.
Yes.
And I see everything else as a bonus.
Yes.
Like, it's just amazing that anyone even cares about me or has time for me or makes an effort to do something or connect me to someone, or whatever it is. And that's just a beautiful bonus of life. But I've got to be in charge of it. And I think that just came from many years of having expectations. I always talk about there's three types of creators, but we usually end up one of the two. So there's the sellout creator. A sellout creator only goes with what the audience wants. So you literally forget about anything you care about or believe in. You just go for what you think is going to get likes. And then the opposite is the selfish creator who only creates for themselves. They're like, I think this is amazing. Like, I'm the funniest person in the world, or I'm the deepest person, or whatever it is. And you create something and like no one wants to watch it because you literally made it for you and your mom. Like, you know, it's kind of like sits there. And so I always aim for being in the middle. I recognize that I want to stand for what I believe in, but I also want it to connect and resonate and have a positive impact on other people's lives. So that's my starting point, that every piece of content should be true to me, but it should resonate with people. It should make a difference. I set a goal very early on that my videos were only 75% complete. And I say this everywhere. Actually, I've never said it often I've never said it on a podcast, but I've said it often on stage and at events. My videos are only 75% complete, which means I mess words up often. So you'll see that sometimes my sentence wasn't perfect. I mispronounced a word. I developed a lisp on a word because it was in flow and I said it and it wasn't right, but it felt right. And other things where I finished a shoot and we forgot a shot that was huge for the video, but I'm like, it's all right, 75%. So my goal with every video is 75%. And I've had to do that because I've realized that if I wait for 75 to 99, I'll be waiting for a year and a half or 3 years.
You'd have 2 videos.
Yeah, I'd have 2 videos, right? And we release 3 videos a week right now. And so for me, the goal was always 75%. And I personally
love that.
Yeah, and I personally think that's a great aim because 75% is realistic, it's quality. So you're not settling for less. But 75 to 99 is such a long journey. I really started to get fascinated in my teens. My father became very spiritual when I was 10 years old, and I actually saw that as very weird because...
Why did he do that?
I think he went through, now when I look back on hindsight, he went through his sort of like midlife crisis journey search at the age of 40 where he was married, had 2 kids, had a decent job in the city, but didn't feel satisfied and didn't feel fulfilled. And so he went off, and I was 10 years old. He went on his search. So he went from everything from Reiki and healing to Church of Scientology through to all the religious truths and was just searching for answers. And when he did that, that was actually quite alien and weird for me and my family because we thought, oh, he's just gone mad. Because I guess it was my first experience of what a midlife crisis or midlife journey looks like. So that actually deterred me from spirituality because it was almost like he was letting the family down and it was tough for my mum and all the rest of it. So that was kind of how my teens were spent. But then I got fascinated by it because I remember it was one Christmas and we used to celebrate Christmas every year. We used to wrap presents, have a Christmas tree. And one year I just felt like a hypocrite. I was just like, I don't know anything about Jesus. And I don't know much about Christianity. I was about 15 years old. And I was like, but we celebrate Christmas. Like, why do we celebrate Christmas? So then I remember I went to church that year on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve, just because I felt like a hypocrite and I felt that I should at least understand or try and take an interest in what I was doing. I think the first thing is you've got to get comfortable being you. See, no one will ever be comfortable with you being you if you're not comfortable being you. And I think we first try and prove ourselves to other people. So my favorite, this is like, I talk about this all the time. It's probably one of my favorite pieces of insights. It's from a writer named Cooley in the 1900s. And he said, today I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. So what he means by that is we are living in a perception of ourselves. If I think you guys think that I'm nice, then I feel nice. If I think that you think I'm weird, I feel weird. So we're constantly living through the perception of someone else. So my first thing is get away from that. Take that away. Figure out how you feel about yourself. So I would say happiness is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. Right? Like, how do you feel about yourself when you're by yourself, when no one else is around? We've all heard the story, and I'm just sharing it again to give context. We've all heard the story of the two wolves or the two dogs, however you want to phrase it. And if you haven't, I'll tell it now. It's the story of how inside of us there are two dogs, two wolves, and they're fighting for supremacy. So inside you, one is the initiator and one is the responding. Your whole life, you've been feeding and listening to the initiator. So your initiating wolf is strong, powerful, bulky, aggressive, because it's been fed well your whole life. And your responsive dog, your responsive wolf, has not been fed, has not been listened to. And so it's weak and feeble and meek and humble and doesn't even stand to fight. So when they two come to fight inside of you, this wolf's just gonna eat that wolf right up. And that's what's happening right now. So for all of us, whatever two wolves you're seeing, whether it's your mind and your intelligence, whether it's your intuition versus what your parents say, whether it's expectations of society versus your expectations of yourself, like whatever two wolves you have inside of you, the one that wins is the one you feed and the ones you have been feeding. Now, if you're at a point where you are and where I am and where all of us are in different scenarios of our life, where we're trying to shift and start feeding the other one, it's hard because the other one's just been fed more. It's stronger. It's able to push you. It's able to dictate you. And this is where detachment's so key, that detachment doesn't mean that you own nothing. Detachment means that nothing owns you. And most of us have become owned by our darker wolves. Most of us have become owned by the self that we don't want. So that conditioning has been drawn up. The only way to break it is to disrupt the pattern, to really break that. It has to be, and this is why I talk to people about immersive experiences. Like you meditating for 10 minutes a day on a headspace, that's wonderful and I recommend it, but that's not gonna shift this in a drastic way. Right. You are going to have to go and spend a week out in Joshua Tree with the shaman. You are going to have to take a break in Jerusalem, right? We were both in love with Jerusalem. Like instead of going on a holiday this year, you are going to have to go on a 3-day intensive transformative retreat. And the reason why I'm saying all these different things is they all have different budgets. They're all available in different countries. You don't have to go to India and live with monks, but you have to do something, and it has to be immersive. Because when you get immersed in something, then you're giving something the power to break your pattern. Right. And I think the challenge is we're trying to solve it by a little thing every day, which is a good start to get us going. But if you're really serious about a massive shift in your life, wherever you're seeing that energy coming from for the right side, the responsive side, you need to go water that, you need to go feed it, you need to go give it energy. And that's what I think we find that. And that's where I think people struggle. They still want to go on their beach holiday. They're like, no, I can't give that up. I need that. Or this weekend, I still need to go and do up my house. And it's like, well, no, like just imagine what would happen if this weekend you just went on a 3-day retreat that changed your life. Like imagine if you just gave that energy.
In terms of finding your purpose, that seems like it's the first step, is getting comfortable with yourself, understanding that. How do we take that next step towards finding that purpose?
Yeah, so for me, I define it as your passion is for you, your purpose is for others. So your purpose is when you use your passion to serve others. That's the link. So for me, the focus actually first becomes, what's your passion? Like, what are you passionate about? What do you enjoy doing? And then the parts that's usually missed. So everyone hears follow your passion, find your passion. It's like a cliche, it's everywhere. The difference is get really good at it. Like get so good at it. And everyone always misses that point. You can be as passionate as you want about tennis, but if you're not really good at tennis, no one's gonna care and no one's gonna take note. And I think that's often missed, that not only do you need to find what you're passionate about, you need to turn it into an expertise, which is undeniable. And that requires the hard work, that requires the work ethic, that requires the early mornings, that requires the training in whatever field you wanna be. And that's gonna make you successful. So when you figure out your passion and you get really good at it, you're gonna become successful. But you're only gonna be happy when you use that success to help other people. And then you've got to figure out that link to purpose. So you're going to find your purpose. So when you realize, hey, I'm really good at this, I love it, I get a lot of happiness from doing it. When you start using that to make a difference in other people's lives in any way, it automatically switches into a purpose. So you don't need to find your purpose. It's just an automatic evolution of finding your passion and being really good at it. And that's where we're messing up, that we haven't found something we love, and we haven't found something that we love that we've got really good at. So what we usually do with our lives is we do things that we're not good at and don't love, right? Or we do things that we're good at but don't love. And we need to switch into the spaces of things that we love but are not good at and get really good at them, and start finding out things that you are good at and you do love. There's different ways to play the game. Some people spin the ball, some people go for a straight direct roll, some people use 2 or 3 fingers, the list continues. And the truth is, it's exactly the same in our lives. You will see some people succeeding in a certain way and others doing it completely differently. The goal is to find your way, your method, your approach, the direction that works for you without trying to copy or mimic or imitate someone else. And we've all experienced this. Sometimes your ball ends up in the gutter. I'm sure you've had that before. Sometimes your throw was completely out of control and your ball went directly into the gutter. Or maybe sometimes you actually felt well prepared and confident, but the ball still ended up in the gutter. In life, just like that ball, sometimes we feel we're in the gutter. But there's something to learn from that. And just like the ball comes back, when we learn through our experience, we get another opportunity to improve, another opportunity to try, another opportunity to succeed. As Oscar Wilde said, all of us are in the gutter, but some of us are looking up at the stars. Sometimes you hit a spare. You threw your best shot, you got the angle perfectly right, you prepared with everything you had, and that one pin is still up there. Sometimes, despite our best efforts in life, we don't get what we want. Not everything aligns. Everything doesn't go to plan. Life is a lot like bowling. Keep your eyes on the ball, your concentration in the game, and your mind out of the gutter. And in the end, we realize we have to be just like that bowling pin. No matter how hard we're hit by life, no matter how hard we're hit by others, we have to keep stepping back up. That has happened so many times when a video you think is gonna hit and it doesn't, and then there's a video you're like, that's never gonna hit, and it does. And that's where I've reconciled my self-doubt, is recognizing that I don't always know what's gonna work, and that's a beautiful thing. And that I've been feeling this often, that I've got to where I want in life, just not in the way I imagined it. And that's the beauty of giving up that control and feeling slightly liberated. So I'll give an example of what I mean by that. I'm always working strategically, effectively, and impactfully in the best ways I can. But sometimes the place where I put my most energy does the worst, and sometimes something that I tried on the side like blows up, and it's incredible. And that's where I've reconciled myself down, recognizing if I'm putting my best foot forward and I'm working strategically and effectively, the things that are going to work will work. And it may not be the things I expect. And what we're doing is, or what I do sometimes too, is you're so focused on wanting one thing to work, you miss the fact that there's like 9 other things that are happening that are amazing around you that you could never have dreamed of. And I've seen that in my life countless times where I wanted one thing to work, 3 things were working over here, but I was so like, why is this not working? Like, why is this not working? That you miss that. So self-doubt for me is something that I've tried to build a close relationship with, and I get it all the time. I still get it before a post, before a video, before anything. I mean, I was just I'm working on my book right now. I just launched a podcast, and before I launched the podcast, I had no idea how well it was going to do, how badly it was going to do, or anything. And there was a part of me that was like, are people going to listen to this? Like, are people going to care? Like, I ask myself all those questions still today. Number 1, I'm glad I asked myself those questions. It means I'm human. It means that I care. It means that it's important to me. I speak at so many conferences and everyone always asks me, do you still get nervous? I go, yes, I get nervous because I care. The day I stop feeling nervous, that means I don't care anymore. If I don't care anymore, that means I don't love what I do anymore. So for me, the first thing is I recognize that self-doubt just shows me that I care and that something's important to me. Whereas I don't doubt myself around things that I don't care about. Like if you ask me a question right now about what's the recipe for this amazing dish, I wouldn't know, and I'd say, I don't know. And I'd be okay with it because I don't care about cooking. I'm not a cook, right? But if it's something that you care about, you'll have self-doubt. The second thing that I do with self-doubt is I go, okay, if that's the things that I'm doubting myself for, what strategies, what can I put into place to overcome them? Doubt is just a great way of making you check what you need to work on. So if my doubt is, oh my God, not enough people are going to listen to this. So I'm like, okay, so how do we make it more listenable? How do we make the content better? How do we make the conversation better? If my doubt is, I don't feel like people are going to like this topic. Okay, what themes am I good at talking about? What is, it's a great checking system to improve what you have. So don't look at self-doubt as negative. Turn it into a positive by actually asking yourself those questions. Right, so build a relationship with self-doubt because it's never going to go away.
Right, don't avoid it.
Don't avoid
That's
it.
the worst
Definitely
thing.
don't avoid it. It's never going to go away. So if it's never going to go away, build a happy, positive relationship with it. So my positive relationship with it is you're showing me what I need to focus on to feel less of that. And most of us feel self-doubt because we're not researching, we're not building knowledge, we're not building expertise. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is when I feel self-doubt, it's because I'll give a perfect example. When I was thinking about doing a podcast and you're doing interviews, you don't just become an interviewer. You have to watch interviews. You have to absorb good interviewers. You can't just be an interviewee. You have to watch good interviewees. And so for me, a lot of us start something and we feel self-doubt because we've never learned that skill or we've never observed that skill. So my focus is if I want to be a good interviewer, I need to watch good interviewers. If you want to be a good stage performer, watch good stage performers. If you want to be a good monk, watch good monks, right? You don't become something good without seeing it. So self-doubt comes because you haven't upskilled. And the great thing today is you can do an online course. You can upskill from here. You can upskill from there. You can just listen to this podcast and watch you guys who've done it for such a long period of time. Seeing someone who's done something consistently, that's the best way of getting good at something. And then your self-doubt will disappear. So self-doubt can only be cut by the sword of knowledge. It can only be cut by the sword of upskilling. So that's where it starts. Right? Love is a doing word. It's active. It's a verb. And if love is a verb, then service is the action. And that's why love and service have to be so intertwined, because I feel that today when we talk about love, the definition is so skewed. When people hear the word love,
that's maybe what the problem is.
That's what the problem is. That's why I prefer service to love. Because service is the activation of love. When someone loves someone, they serve. That's how love works. And I think that's why when we talk about love, I agree. It's just because of phonetics, definitions, breaking it down, love has become so badly abused. Like the word love is so abused and misused in our lives.
Hey, it really is, right?
You say, I love you to people you don't love. People use it to manipulate people. We just throw love around.
Right.
And as much as it should be everywhere, it's also sacred. Love's also sacred. And that's why you were able to experience it, because it was experienced through a sacred mechanism. You were able to experience love.
Yeah, and I've never felt it like that before, because it also was this sense of self-love as well.
Yeah. And that's what you felt in Jerusalem too, when you went. And that's what I felt. And that's what I feel, that we experience love when it's through service and engagement in that atmosphere. We don't just experience it every single day. I personally also, having become I feel like I've become even more of a seeker since being involved. And that's opened me up to alternative ideas, alternative ways of thinking, learning from all different traditions wherever I can. And I think that's a really important part. I think the challenge with being a immature seeker, in my definition of it, is you find something, it sounds cool, and you go, that's it, there's nothing else. And then a real seeker goes, well, that is it, but how can everything else even enhance this and make this even greater for me, if this is where my faith is, or this is where my belief system is? So I'm someone who genuinely loves learning from people from all different walks of life and backgrounds, because I feel if I was presented with a deeper, more meaningful philosophy and life structure, I would adopt it. That's why, because I'm open to that. We were left on the streets for 30 days to fend for ourselves and to figure it out. Just, that's it. You've got your clothes that you're wearing. There's no money, no food, no shelter, no nothing. Figure it out. And day one, I'm like, okay, like, you know, maybe it's a joke. Like maybe they're gonna come back at night and be like, no guys, it was, you know. So I'm trying to figure out what it is. This is training mode. And it's really interesting what your mind and body does. So the first thing your mind and body does when you have nothing is you have fear. The first thing you feel is fear. And that we can all relate to in life. The first thing you feel when you all of a sudden feel that your plan and you have nothing organized and you have no structure and shelter and all of this stuff that we now rely on, you have fear. Now the fact that you're there on your own and you don't have a phone and you can't just call someone up and you don't know the city that you're in, your next thing is survival.
Right.
Fear leads to survival mode. So you're trying to find food from everywhere, you're trying to hoard it, you're trying to get it from everywhere, you're trying to keep it, you're trying to figure out like, how can I get lots of this so that I can take care of myself? And you start just becoming crazy almost. And it's funny because those two experiences are so similar to what you see in society today.
Yeah.
Fear breeds survival mode, which breeds greed and hoarding and wanting to have.
Lack of abundance.
Lack of abundance, exactly. And so you do that in that scenario for like, remember this is a 30-day experiment, it's crazy. So you do that for like the first week. You do that for the first week where you're just trying to find anywhere, steal, look, etc. Not steal, trying not to steal, but like finding fruits off trees, whatever. You're just trying to do whatever you can, finding anywhere to sleep. And you're fending for yourself. It's all about you. The interesting thing that happens in week 2 is that you recognize that you really want to, when you make a difference in someone's life, they'll help you. So by week 2, you start recognizing, oh, if I help villages, if I help this old lady, if I help this old man, if I serve the people around me, then they'll give it to me anyway. And we saw people inviting us into their homes, we saw people giving us food, we saw people cooking for us, just because we were helping people.
Wow.
And you start to see community, you start to see the value of collaboration, you start to see the value of energy exchange, you start to learn how your heart and soul leads to other people giving you their heart and soul. And you experience that. Now the interesting thing is that goes on for about 2 weeks and you think you've kind of mastered it.
Right.
And then the biggest challenge comes when this is what you're meant to grow to, and this is where you go beyond feeling good about serving and getting an exchange. And this is not spoke about as prominent today because I think we live in a world where people aren't self-loved and self-fueled enough to even consider this. And so we talk a lot about self-love today, which I highly believe in.
Right.
We talk a lot about non-judgment of yourself today, which I highly believe in. But this principle is beautiful. We recognized by the final week that actually we were far stronger and capable than a lot of people on the planet, a lot of people in the village, that were disabled, that couldn't see, that had lost their eyesight, that couldn't speak, that couldn't walk, they had broken limbs. And so by the end of it, we realized that when we served others and gained, we could actually give to those people because they didn't have, because they weren't young men like we were, they weren't able men like we were, they weren't skilled like we were. And that
so you can even go another level.
You could go another level. It wasn't just that you could take care of yourself, you could go another level. But those 3 stages of transformation show us exactly the 3 stages we need. The first is getting over your greed and ego. The second one is recognizing that you have value, and when you serve others, there's a value exchange. And the third, when you're feeling full and overflowing, you can then overflow to others. And so for me, that 30 days has transformed my life ever since, because I was able to experience all of the experiences we experience today, but in heightened mode. I didn't know where I was gonna sleep or where I was gonna eat. And when you experience it at that extreme and you're able to work it out, now you have more perspective, you have more gratitude, you have more ability to navigate that emotion again. Yeah. And you recognize that it is an emotion. So for me, that was one of the most transformative things that I've ever done.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and it just really took me on an internal journey of overcoming fear, overcoming greed, and always recognizing that you can always go that one step above. I think on a personal level, I value deep thought because I loved rap music. So I used to listen to a lot of rap music growing up. And so people like Tupac, Eminem, Nas, etc., their lyrical abilities and their lyrical expression was a huge part of me growing up. And I used to spend a lot of time writing lyrics myself and playing with words. And I always enjoyed expressing things through poetry or spoken word. And when I read these books, a lot of them felt like poetry and spoken word. There were a lot of, not just rhyme, but there was a lot of creative expression there. So I almost was very interested or intrigued because of the way the philosophy was being communicated. But I wouldn't say I was looking for it or seeking or any of that sort. I was just like, oh, this is impressive. This is interesting thought. Maybe I can apply it in my music, or maybe I can use it here. It was less about the search for knowledge or wisdom. It was more about, oh, this could be cool to talk about here, or this would be interesting to extract from.
And when did it begin to change? When did your attitude towards theological texts or great spiritual works change from a kind of utilitarian curiosity that it could be magpied into a, hold on a minute, there's something in here that's going to alter me?
So I think the big thing for me was the first time I met a monk. And it's something that you can't ask someone like, oh, when was the first time you met a monk?
My first monk. God, I was just a slip of a girl then, back in Kent, picking apples on the coast. So tell me, what was your first experience?
So I remember I was around 18 years old, and I found out from a friend that this monk had been invited to speak at a university. And I was pretty uninterested to go. Wasn't really fascinated by it, and I actually remember saying to my friend, as long as we go out afterwards, I'll turn up to the event. So if we go to a bar afterwards,
as usual, dragged even to the feet of a monk by lust.
Yeah, literally. And so he said, yeah, I promise you. And he was getting into spirituality and interested by these things. So I went along, and I was captivated.
Who was it?
So this man's name is Gauranga Das. He lives in India. I think you might have met him at the Eco Village. So he built the Eco Village. So you might have met him when you went there.
In Mumbai, the Krishna Consciousness Eco Village, where it's like 100% carbon footprint free. They grow their own fruit and veg using, let's face it, human poo. like it's there's animals there. They're growing
fragrant flowers.
It's sort of amazing place. It's sort of beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
I expect you're like me, thinking, what systems could we replicate in order to save the world?
Absolutely.
And that seems like one. So you met,
So I met him.
What's his name again?
Gauranga. So he was speaking, and just to put it in context for everyone listening, this man is Indian. He has a strong Indian accent. He's not necessarily externally attractive to the kind of person I'd be attracted to. At that time, I was attracted to
Tupac.
Yeah, exactly.
And women.
Right. And rags to riches stories. I loved celebrities and influencers and people who'd made money. Like, that's who I looked up to. People who'd gone from nothing to something. And then I'm here listening to this man wearing robes, and I'm totally captivated. I'm just like, wow, he's so fascinating. And the reason that he was fascinating is because he was talking about selfless service. And he talked about how real meaning, real happiness, real fulfillment from life comes when you're able to plant trees under whose shade you do not plan to sit. So you want to give shelter to others. You want to provide things for others without expecting something back from them. And at that time, that idea just penetrated through my whole being.
Why, when it's directly contradictory to your experience up to that point, why is this message relevant?
So I think two things. One thing is I was looking for a thrill in my teens, and that's when I was getting involved in all sorts of wrong ideas, wrong activities, or wrong in the sense of things that we wouldn't recommend or want our children to get involved in.
Drugs, sex, fighting?
But, totally, yeah, all of that. Violence, petty theft, all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't doing it because I wanted stuff. I was doing it because I wanted a thrill in life. And when I saw him and saw the way he was living, he had made that process thrilling. Like, he looked happy. He looked more happy, more content, more fulfilled than anyone I'd ever seen. On top of that, he was extremely charismatic. And I just thought, I want to get to know this man. And then I found out that he'd given up jobs at some of the biggest companies in the world. And he went to IIT and had studied at IIT, which is the MIT of India, the Indian Institute of Technology. He was like a gold medalist at this place. And he'd given that all up to be a monk, to serve humanity. And I thought, wow, that's unbelievable, because he's given up everything that everyone that I know is chasing, but he's happy and he's found meaning and he's found that fulfillment that I feel is just emanating from who he is. So it was the first time in my life where I'd gone from not looking up to someone who went from nothing to something, but someone who'd gone from something to nothing. And that was a massive paradigm shift moment for me, and a massive moment of just, wow, there is more out there. And I constantly say this, and I say it often, it's, you can't be what you can't see. I would not have wanted to be a monk if I didn't see a monk who was fulfilled and happy and had this power about him. And up until that point, anyone that I'd seen that was rich or successful or beautiful or had a beautiful looking model girlfriend or whatever it was, they still didn't emanate that happiness for me. So I saw that very early on, not in the extreme sense. I didn't have celebrity friends or anything, but from what I saw, I could very clearly see that material things weren't making people deeply happy. And he was someone who had given that up and seemed happy to me. There's a beautiful Indian story about a musk deer with a really powerful lesson. Now, you may have already heard of musk, maybe because it exists in your perfumes or your aftershaves or deodorants as a scent. And this scent is one of the most expensive natural products in the world, fetching 3 times its weight in gold. Now, when this deer comes across this aroma, this scent, it becomes completely captivated. It searches through the forest day and night for the source of this scent. Completely intoxicated by this incredible fragrance, the deer searches in every corner, in every place to find where it's coming from. The deer completely exhausts itself looking for the source, with the bitter irony and not recognizing that the fragrance comes from inside its own body. The fragrance musk is produced in a gland in the deer's body. The deer spends its whole life searching for outside what was always hidden inside. I heard this example when I lived as a monk to describe the human condition of life. How we spend our whole lives looking for pleasures and happiness outside of us, when actually what we're searching for is right there inside of us. We try to find joy and happiness in external pleasures, in things, in results, when actually real happiness comes from meaning, relationships, and a connection with oneself. See, we all know that we can't love someone we don't know. So how can you love yourself when you don't know yourself? And just as this musk deer, we've probably had similar experiences. How many times have you walked out of your home and then felt that you've forgotten one of those top 3 things? Usually your keys, your wallet or purse, or your phone. You rush back in, you look around your own home, you make a mess, you make havoc, you look under every seat, every corner, and then realize that that phone, that wallet or purse, or those keys were in your back pocket. In the process of seeking happiness externally, we make a complete mess of our minds and life, and sometimes even the lives of others, not realizing that what we were truly looking for has always been with us. Today we hear a lot about self-love and self-care, but neither of these are possible without self-knowledge, without self-realization, without self-awareness. Remember, if we don't know ourselves, we can't love ourselves. I remember being 10 years old in the school playground. The cutest girl at school had just found out that I fancied her, like every other guy at school liked her. And I remember a group of girls standing behind me in the playground, just taking the mick out of me and taking the fun out of me, saying, oh, how can Jay think that he could be with her because he's so ugly and fat and all the rest of it. And I look back at that and I'm so happy it happened, because I think it's let me be more compassionate, let me be more empathetic, it's let me not be egotistical, it's humbled me and made me more grateful and realize how much hard work it is being any different, any way that we are. Our identity should start with unlearning everything that we think we know about ourselves.
Okay. And how do we unlearn?
So the best method of unlearning is this. First, and I'm going to get really strategic and tactical, because I think that people need to know what to do rather than a concept. The first thing you do is write down everything you currently are chasing in your life. Make a long list.
Your goals, your dreams.
Your goals, your dreams.
Accomplishments.
Anything that you're currently chasing and pursuing.
Okay.
Write them down. You can write down 3, you can write down 5, you can write down 10, depending on how ambitious you are. Second line, ask yourself, what is the source of that? Where did you get that idea? Did you get that idea from a TV show you saw? Did you get that idea from your parents? Did you get that idea from your mom and your dad, your sister, your cousin? Did you get that idea because your friend just got proposed to on Instagram? Did you get that idea because your friend just got promoted? Did you get that idea because you just broke up?
Right.
Or did you get that idea because you just feel it when you do it, that you feel alive?
So
Ask
give me a
that.
specific example that you had when you were 15, 18, was like a goal or accomplishment that you were chasing and where it came from.
Absolutely. So my goal when I was young was to be an investment banker. And when I really asked myself, where did that come from? It came because in my community, small community in London, the most successful person financially was an investment banker. So I believed you had to be an investment banker to be successful.
Right.
So when I asked myself that question, where does that come from? It comes from society's version of success, not mine. And then the third thing you ask yourself is, well, then what is mine? What is coming from inside of me? And if you just do that 3-step process, now what you're doing is you're filtering out the noise and you're starting to listen to your voice. The thing is, you've got a voice inside of you, but it's quiet. It's like Jay, like take note of me, like Lewis, you know, and it's just like trying to get through, and the noise of everyone else's opinions is so loud. So this way you filter it. We always have been trained to focus on the result. So people ask, what do you want in life? And I'm like, forget that. That's the worst question to ask someone. Because when you ask what you want, that's when the ads come in. And you're like, oh, I want that car, I want that home, I want that dress, I want that body, I want whatever it is. My question to you is, what do you want to wake up and be every day? Like, what do you want to wake up and do every day? What's the process that you're in love with? So we're thinking about the result, whereas my question is, forget the result. What's the process that you're in love with doing? So start there, first of all. Don't start your journey of saying, I want to be a movie director because I want to, you know, I want to hit the blockbuster charts. So I want to do this. Don't make it about that. Like, don't be like, I want to be a singer because I want to be Ariana Grande, right? Like, that's not the point. That's just a result. Do you love singing every day? And I realized this with a very honest question to myself. I'm really passionate about football, soccer. I absolutely love the game. I grew up on it. I'm still a huge fan. I missed out on it when I was a monk. I've been catching up ever since. I'm like, oh, any football game. I was just in London last week and I made sure I went. Couldn't see a game live, but I went and watched it at a bar in London, and I love the energy. I'm so passionate about soccer. I don't have what it takes to be a soccer player.
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to wake up at 4 a.m. I wake up at 4 a.m. to meditate. When I was a monk, I wake up at 5:30 a.m. now to meditate. I do not want to wake up at 4 a.m. to go out on a raining pitch and play soccer. Like, I don't want to be in the gym for 4 hours a day. I want to meditate for 4 hours a day, but I don't want to play soccer for 4 hours a day and then be in the gym and train. I'm not envious of any athlete in the world because it takes a different type of mindset. I really believe that everything we say, that beautiful thought from Gandhi where he said that when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in line, then you'll experience harmony. And I've really taken that to heart, and it's this powerful spiritual principle, and it really means a lot to me.
What you think, what you say,
and what you do are aligned. And so for me, any form of language, any form of your emotional vocabulary is building your mental reality. And I think people forget that their vocabulary is defining their life. You are creating your life on a daily basis by the words you use. So for me, and I'm not saying that I feel that way about everyone else. I'm saying that's how I feel about that word. Someone may say, oh, when I say a swear word, it makes me laugh. For me, it doesn't. That I would only swear when I felt bad and I felt something negative towards something. So for me, that had negative emotions, negative connotations, and negative intention attached to it. So I wanted to remove anything from my vocabulary that I felt was negative. So even as simple as, and I've done this very recently, but it's changed my life. Instead of me saying I'm busy or it's been a busy week, I say I'm having a productive week. And I feel different when I go to bed, just by that simple change. I go to bed thinking, yeah, I've had a really productive day today, rather than going, God, I had a busy day today. Like, I don't want to wake up tomorrow. I'm going to have a busy day tomorrow. And so that simple emotional vocabulary change has just catapulted my mind into feeling excited and enthusiastic all the time. I was really shy. I didn't enjoy stages. I didn't enjoy speaking. My parents forced me to go to public speaking and drama school. So I spent 14 to 18 in public speaking and drama school. Changed my life. I did not know what I wanted to speak about. So even when I finished at 18, I still didn't like going on stage because I didn't have anything to talk about. So now you've got the tools, but you haven't got the passion. So I developed somewhat of an expertise in 4 years, but I didn't have what I was passionate about. And then when I became a monk, I was like, this is it. This is why I went to public speaking school, because I love talking about philosophy. I love talking about science. I love talking about culture. I love talking about life. I love talking about growth, etc., the mind. So I got what I was passionate about when I became a monk. So for me, the process came from 4 years of consistent public speaking school. Like, it changed my life. And that's all thanks to my parents for forcing me to go. I had no interest in being a public speaker or a storyteller or any of these things. That was just, I lucked out. And then it was me finding what I was passionate to speak about. And then I've spoken for 3 hours a day for the last 13 years. And I spoke to audiences of 0 all the way to audiences now of thousands. But when I first started speaking, I remember I was invited to speak at a university where I wasn't getting paid for. I was like 20 years old. I was invited to speak to this university. No one showed up twice. So they organized 2 events for me. I was meant to speak about life, philosophy, etc., all the kind of stuff I speak about now, and 0 people turned up. And I practiced my speech both times to an empty room as if it was a packed room, because I was like, I'm still going to practice. And so for me, having done this for 3 hours a day for the last 13 years, that's now being gratefully received online. So I'm very fortunate that it's shifted from an offline world to an online world, which we can dive into. Yeah. But the point is, it's been my absorption and addiction for over a decade now. One of the biggest mistakes we make is that we confuse inexperience with being unqualified. So because we've not tried a lot of things, we just naturally believe that we can't be that good at them. Mm-hmm. So if I've never spoken on a stage, I just think, oh, I'm probably not good at that. Or if I've never played golf, I'd probably think, oh, I'm probably not good at that. And so we start writing off things without even trying them. So the best method I can share with someone is take the next month, take the next 4 weekends in the month, that gives you 8 days, and get really tactical. Every single day.
That's why you're playing tennis a lot right now.
Yeah, playing tennis. Take the 8 days, go join a course, an online course, a workshop, go and shadow a friend, go to a seminar, a conference, go to reading a book, listen to a podcast. Go and expose yourself to 8 different things in a month.
8 different things?
8 different things in a month. And guess what? In a month, you will have learned what you probably would have learned in 8 years, because most of us test 1 new thing a year.
Maybe.
Maybe, if that, exactly, right? Like some people don't even do that. But if you do 8 different things in a month, and this is how you have to see it. If you went to 8 different restaurants in a month, you ask yourself after you eat a meal, like, I had that burrito or I had that taco. Did I like it? Right? The first question you ask yourself is, did I like it?
You gotta try it first.
You gotta try it first. You gotta go to the restaurant.
Yeah.
There's no point. So you gotta say, did I like it? The second question you ask yourself is, why did I or why did I not like it? Mm-hmm. Like, why is so important? And I think too many people just go, I like it or I don't like it. Why didn't I like it? And the third question you have to ask yourself, really, really simple, is, do I want to do it again? And if you do, that's where you start uncovering. So my point is, inexperience. Do not misinterpret inexperience for a lack of qualification. In the hope for money, in the hope for success, we end up chasing the wrong things and we make a mess. We end up with less than we started with, end up with more issues than we bargained for. Whilst climbing that ladder and that stairway, we forget why we started climbing in the first place. Once, the king of Bhutan was asked by an interviewer what the GDP of Bhutan was. He was surprised and shocked. He replied by saying, in Bhutan, we don't just measure the GDP, we measure the GNH. Instead of just measuring the gross domestic product, we measure gross national happiness. In the process of getting older, we forget the real goal of life. If you could make a little less and spend more time doing what you love, would that make you happier? Don't trade your happiness for what you think you need. Things can never make us happy because they're temporary and limited, but experiences can last forever. Too many people are working hard on things they don't love, to spend money they don't have, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't like. When we create our identity around what we do, a career, a job, an occupation, we can never be happy because we're basing it on something external. But when we create an identity around who we are and what we want to be and become, then anything is possible. And remember, we become successful by what we get, but we become happy by what we give. Don't get the two confused. I start off the chapter with this beautiful thought from Charles Horton Cooley, and I love telling it because it's just the best. And I think it was written in like the 1900s. And he said, today the challenge is, I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am.
It's crazy, man.
And it's like, it blows my mind. Every time I say it, it gives me the chills, like I feel it. And the reason why I start with identity is because I think that's the root of all our challenges. And the first step to thinking like a monk is starting at the root, not starting at the symptoms or the superficial or the surface level, but let's go to the root. If you're playing a role if you're wearing a mask, if you're dressed in clothes that are not yours, then you end up living a life that's not yours. And in the book, I give this example of method acting.
Yes, with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, I'm a massive movie junkie, and I love method actors. So people like Heath Ledger, of course, from the Dark Knight series. You've got Jared Leto. So Jared Leto, when he played the Joker in, this is not in the book, in Suicide Squad, he used to send dead rats in the mail to his co-stars.
He did not.
He did, because he was trying to get into the mindset of how someone that perverted would behave. And then Daniel Day-Lewis, when he was filming for Gangs of New York, he's actually wearing these coats that are centuries old so that he can get into character when he's off camera. Yeah, when he can feel it, right? He's not wearing watches. He's not carrying around his mobile phone. They're speaking in the accents. And he talks about how he actually went crazy. Because guess what? When you fake being someone for so long, you think it's your reality. And that's what happens to all of us. We play a role at work, we play a role at home, we play a role with our family, we play a role with our friends, and then we think that role is us.
Right.
And we lose ourselves. Envy actually is more of a expression of how we feel about ourselves rather than how we're perceiving someone else. It's actually so much more about how comfortable we feel with who we are, how confident we feel with who we are, how much self-esteem we have, how much self-assurance we have. Envy is more a root of that than it is of the fact that someone else is doing well. It's less about the fact that someone out there is amazing, making waves, doing something that you want to be doing. It's more about how we feel about ourselves, and it's experienced in that way of looking at someone else and reflecting back on us. Social circles, family circles, someone else has done amazingly in their exams, someone just landed a new job, someone else just got promoted, and everyone's looking at you going, what are you doing? Right, what have you achieved? Where are you today? Where have you got? Right, what's happening with you? Tell us about you. And you're thinking, you know, you're going through all your head, you're trying to come up with all the things that you've thought about, all the things that you've achieved, all the things that you've done, and you're trying to bring it up, like constantly. But you're struggling, you find it hard because you're now measuring your growth based on someone else's. You're now measuring your success based on someone else's. And that is the biggest challenge with envy. That one of the biggest challenges it brings in our life is that it forces us to start measuring our success in comparison to someone else's. That is the biggest challenge with envy. When we start comparing the level of our success with someone else's, you're already on the wrong foot. I think any sorts of dress or any sort of, whether it be, dress or appearance or any of that, if it's taking you away from who you actually are and how you like expressing yourself, then that kind of contradicts being able to be authentic. Literally use your weekends and evenings to do a test on anything. The best way is go and do a course, test it out. Try doing it once. Go and shadow someone who does it, someone in your life that does it. If you want to be a podcaster, come and shadow you guys for a week, right? And see what that life's like. See what it actually looks like to research, to sit with a guest, to find new guests, to work it out. Like, go and shadow someone who's already doing it. And then try and do it for a day. Like, try and do the schedule of someone you look up to for a day. Like, if you can do that for a day and you loved it, then do it for one more day. And if you loved it, do it for another day, and that's going to trickle in. So that's a much smarter way to finding your passion, rather than just sitting there and reflecting, which is cool, which is important, but I'd encourage you to just get out there, right? Get out there and live the life of someone who's doing it when they started. That's another point. Don't focus on what people are doing now. Focus on what they were doing when they started. So a lot of people ask me, they're like, Jay, how many videos do you make a week? I'm like, I make 3 videos a week, plus my podcast on top of that, plus Instagram. And they'll say, oh, wow, that's too much. And I was like, yeah, but when I started, I made 1 video a week, right? Like, you don't have to start at what I'm doing now. Like, you just start. So that, you know, go back to that. How boring would it be to live in a world where everyone was just like us? Imagine if everyone in your life talked like you, thought like you, walked like you. The world would be a boring place. There'd be no new cultures to explore, no new languages to learn, no new adventures to be had.
If you want to see another amazing Jay Shetty video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
One of my favorite books is called Flow. I was recently rereading it on the Blinkist app. Flow talks about flow state, which is experienced by musicians, rappers.